Hi, I'm Pat and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to work on repairing the fins on the bottom of the diffuser of the Acura NSX because it's hit the ground. If you're new to the channel, please click on the subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications, as I like producing cool car content. And be sure to give this video a big thumbs up. Now, if you have a car that sits really low to the ground, and as you pass over a speed bump, that speed bump may impact the bottom of the diffuser. In fact, what will happen is the finish will wear off, and you might even get a flat section here on the fins of the actual diffuser. Now, I've tried a couple methods to repair this, and I think I came up with something that will actually work. So, if you have a rear diffuser and you're looking to repair it yourself, you might want to give these steps a try. But before we get started, let me give you a closer look as to what I'm talking about. If we could see right here, there's a very dull section on the actual fin of the diffuser. And up here, this is a good finish. But then again, there's a little nick here on the end that's exposed. So all this exposed carbon fiber needs to be repaired. Now, I've done some testing and I've actually repaired this section right here. And it blends in pretty well, although it has a little bit more of a shine to it. And that's because I couldn't get the exact match to this matte finish. You see, there's really not a matte paint out there that I've been able to get my hands on to try to make this match perfectly. But because this is sitting on the bottom of the car, and because the only direction you're really going to see these fins is if you're looking from the very, very back, well, I don't think it's that difficult to go ahead and correct these with a completely clear paint, and that's what I decided to use. A clear paint and some sanding paper. So let's go over the rest of the process for the remaining parts of the fins here that I did not do any testing with. And if you need to repair your carbon diffuser, this may work for you. The first step in the process that I used was to use a 220 grit sanding block. You could also use a 220 grit piece of sandpaper and just go over the edges. Now, in the case of this diffuser, the impact was here on the top, but it caused all the epoxy and any type of paint that was on top of the epoxy to create an edge here. So what I did is I took this sanding block and I was able to work it in both directions on each side of the fin. Now, you want to use gloves and you want to use long sleeves as well as some type of a respirator and eye protection, because this carbon fiber dust, well, it can cause some irritation. You don't want to get it in your lungs, etc. So definitely wear good protective equipment. So once I took care of that, I went ahead and used some alcohol on a rag and I wiped it down. And then that way I was able to take any type of grease or contamination away from this, so then I could apply paint. So you can use a standard clear coat paint on this, or if you can get some matte clear coat, you can also use that. Or you can use a coating epoxy that you can commonly find in a craft store. So what I decided to do was use a clear paint. So any type of clear coat paint will work. This is a universal clear coat paint that I found at Walmart, and this is a Rust-Oleum brand. Or here's a Duplicolor, and this is designed for, of course, in this case, this type of silver is used for my wheels, but it also contains some clear in here. And both of these can be used the same way. You can go ahead and remove the top, and in case you have a brush like this, you don't want to have too much on here. You just want to be able to apply it slowly and then have it cover the areas where it's dull. And you can see that it automatically brings a little bit of clear out. And that's good. So I'm just going to spread this over the entire area where I want to fix the carbon fiber. And I want to let this sit for at least a day. I want to be able to give it an opportunity to dry and to cure. And then I can come back and go on to my next step, which will be sanding. Now, I also want to make sure that I not only cover the very top, but I come over here to the sides a little bit. That way I have a good area covered on not only the very end, the top, but also on the sides, in order to seal up all this dry carbon and at the same time allow this to adhere to not only the finish on the sides, but as well as the exposed carbon on the very top. So after I've applied the paint, I let it sit overnight, so it's the next day. It is shiny, and it's obvious if you're looking at it straight on. Now, obviously, if you're looking at it when it's underneath the car, you're not going to see the shine on it. But either way, I'm going to try using some sandpaper on here, fine grit. I have a 1500 and a 3000. I'm going to start with the 1500. I did do a little bit of testing with the 3000, and I think that 3000 actually left it a little bit too shiny for my taste. So I'm going to go ahead and use the 1500 and wet sand this. So I have my 1500 grit sandpaper. I'm just going to use that first, right here on the back, 1500. And I have some distilled water and a microfiber. So I'm going to vigorously wet down the sandpaper and also wet down the surface that I want to sand. And I want to try to keep this from getting too dry or trying to get too bound up, because this clear paint can actually bind up inside of here. So I don't want to finish anything beyond this point. I can feel where I put the paint down. And I'm just going to lightly sand. I'm going to come over the edges a little bit on each side, as well as go over the top. If I feel things are starting to get a little dry, let's give it a little bit more water. And I'm sanding very lightly. So at this point, I could set my sandpaper aside and just wipe this down with my microfiber and see how dull the finish is. And I can see that it actually dulled up pretty nicely in the high spots, but in the low spots, it's still shiny. And that's to be understood at this point. I totally get it. I may need to put another coat of paint on this in order to level it off. When the speed bumps obviously touch this carbon here, it's going to be flat on the top. So it may need another little bit of paint, but we just give it a couple more gentle passes here with the sandpaper. And I could see the areas that are shiny, so I can focus on those areas now only. I can feel the high ridges here on the sides as well. That doesn't look too bad at all. There's a tiny little bit of shine in here, a little bit more water, but it's not too bad. And I think that shine isn't even going to be detectable unless you're actually under the car looking at this. So if I pick it up and I hold it in the correct angle so the light shines straight down it, I'm not seeing much shine left to this. So from the back of the car, it's definitely going to look okay. I do notice that there are a few areas that are a little jagged right now. So what I may do is go ahead and sand those a little bit more and apply a little bit more paint. But overall, to me, this looks like a decent fix. Now, if I wanted to shine this up a little bit, which I don't think I need to because it practically matches the finish, I could go ahead and use the 3000 grit, but I believe that'll shine it up a tad too much. So I just want to protect it so that it's not bare carbon sticking out. And so if you're looking from the back of the car, it's not obvious that there's really been much damage here. Now I'm going to go ahead and complete the rest of these fins, but I sure hope that you appreciate this recording. And if this helps you, if you have a diffuser like this, I'd recommend just trying this process. Again, you could either get that clear coat paint touch-up practically at any auto parts store, or you could try the epoxy as well. So if you like today's video, please be sure to give me a big thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please click the subscribe button and ring that bell for notifications, as I like producing cool car content. Thanks for watching, and happy motoring.
So this is Pat from the future. Now this looks terrific, doesn't it? This really held up well after 3 years because, I didn't get around to editing this video in time, but everything held up perfectly. Using that clear paint and sanding it was the absolute perfect way of taking care of these rear diffusers. So give it a try.